Hi everybody, welcome back to PCS 101. What I did last class was I posted a video where I talked a little bit about how the class might be structured, and I asked you for some feedback, and that counted as your attendance for that particular class if you sent feedback. And if you haven't sent feedback, you still may, to my email address at ruiz, R-U-I-Z, at gcc.mass.edu. So I read your feedback, and not too surprisingly, basically everybody wants a little bit of everything. So what I thought I would do is to try to give lots of options so that I could accommodate everyone. So what I've done is I've posted a updated course outline and an updated syllabus. The course outline is pretty much the same. The syllabus gives a few more details about the way that we will structure the class. Basically, what I'll be doing is using instructor videos like this one to communicate content. And I will post those on Tuesdays and Thursdays by 9 a.m. in the morning, which if we were meeting in person, that's when we would normally be meeting, on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9 o'clock. And then at the ending of the video, what I will do is post an attendance question for you to answer on our discussion forum. And you should see that I added a Moodle area for a discussion forum. And it'll be the kind of question that doesn't necessarily have a right or a wrong answer. It'll be the kind of question that hopefully will encourage some thinking and some debate. If you answer the question, you get attendance for that particular class. If you wanted to interact with your fellow students with their responses, you could think of that as participation. And if you remember, your class grade is a combination of attendance and participation, and that's approximately, I'm just wanting to refresh myself, 10% of your grade. So I always think of participation as something that's voluntary. I know some people learn by being quiet and absorbing, and some people learn better by interacting with others. But you can think of the participation piece in this class very similar to your raising your hand in class if you wanted to interact with your peers on the discussion forum. And then what I will do is hold some Zoom and chat sessions. I will make them optional, and I will make them also extra credit for those of you who are able to participate, because I realize that many of you will not be able to participate because of scheduling conflicts. So if that happens to be the case, that you think you would like to participate, what I was thinking is that each week I would hold a half-hour Zoom lesson, and then, or half-hour Zoom session, I should say. And I would also hold a half-hour chat session. And you can see that I've added those links on our class as well for Zoom and chat. If you think you might be interested in participating in either a Zoom or a chat occasionally, please let me know what your availability is. If you could send me times to my email address, again, ruiz@gcc.mass.edu, and what I will try to do is to find a time when most of us who express interest in engaging in that would be available. Of course, you can always contact me individually as well if you had any questions or concerns about the class, and we could always make an appointment as well to talk about the class. So, in thinking about the way that we will deliver speeches, the practice speeches I still want to think about a little bit. There are 2 practice speeches over the course of the semester. I'm kind of curious to see what your availability might be so that I can make some final decisions about that. But for the graded speeches, I thought that I would give you one of 2 options. That many of you indicated that you would like the experience of delivering that speech live via Zoom. So if you think that happens to be the case, that you would like to participate in that way, our first speech is on August 4th, our second speech is on August 13th, our third speech is on August 25th, and those are all posted on the course outline. So if you are available those days, if you could once again send me an email and let me know what your times of availability are during those days, and I'll try to find the time that is accessible for, if not all of the people who express interest, at least most of the people who express interest. In the event that you aren't able to participate in a Zoom performance of a speech, I will give you the option of pre-recording your speech, posting that onto our Moodle site, and then the class can respond to your pre-recorded speech. So hopefully by giving all of those options, all of you will be able to participate in the class in a semester that's anything but normal, as you are well aware. In terms of what we will be doing this semester, we'll start in earnest next week. So for us, that would be Tuesday on the 21st. And you can see that in our course outline, I have some scheduled readings for you to do. Chapter 1, Speech and Higher Education. Chapter 2, Getting Started. And Chapter 3, Critical Listening. Please have those read before our class on Tuesday, before our posted video class on Tuesday, because I will be talking about those chapters as well as talking about upcoming assignments as well. In terms of the syllabus, I hope I was able to answer all of your questions, but certainly if you still have questions about the syllabus or the course outline, please let me know. The one section I didn't have a chance to talk about in terms of the syllabus was the plagiarism section, which I'm sure is a word that you've heard in other classes. Plagiarism, basically using somebody else's language or ideas and not giving them credit. Your first speech is an autobiographical speech, so you don't need to do any kind of outside research. You basically know the information right now that you will ultimately be sharing in your 5-minute autobiographical speech. So I don't think that plagiarism would be an issue. Your second speech, which is an informative 10-minute speech, while you can use outside sources, well, I'm mostly encouraging you to think about talking about a topic and teaching us about a topic that you already have some prior knowledge of. That just saves some time and energy. And if that's the case, then I would suspect plagiarism wouldn't be an issue either. Our third and final speech, which happens to be the persuasive speech, 15 minutes. That's a speech that will require you to use outside resources. So by the time we get to that speech, we'll talk a little bit about how you indicate that within the speech, that you're using somebody else's language or someone else's ideas. And the good news is that if you've had this conversation in English classes, you know that the system can be rather detailed. It's much less precise when you are speaking than when you are writing. But that said, the intent is always the same, to make sure that you're letting your reader or your audience know when you are sharing information that isn't yours and making sure that you're giving due credit. In terms of plagiarism, I found that usually it's a pretty deliberate act, and one of the best stories I have about plagiarism that I've shared with classes in the past, one actually happened to me many years ago. This would be pre-internet days, and this is when I was reading a paper and I realized it sounded familiar, and the reason why is because it was passages from basically our own class textbook. But the better story that I like sharing is a middle-aged professor who was basically reading papers, again, many years ago, pre-internet, was trying to determine where he read this before. So he couldn't rely on online sources to help him find plagiarism, things like Turnitin.com, because as many sources as there are for students to plagiarize, there are an equal number of sources for teachers to determine if plagiarism is occurring. But at any rate, as he was reading that paper, it occurred to him why he recognized it. Because he himself had written that paper decades earlier when he was an undergraduate student. It turned out to be one of his old papers that had been recycled by a fraternity and somehow, some way, ended up in his own students' hands. So I always tell those two cautionary tales to say that you definitely don't want to be the individual who is in that particular situation. But luckily for us, as I said, public speaking doesn't necessarily have as much of the specific criteria for documentation that you might find in a situation where you are writing. But we'll get to all of that in due time. So for today's discussion form question, which will also serve as your attendance question, and basically for all of these questions you would have 24 hours in which to respond. If it turns out that you think you can't make that deadline, just ask me for an extension and I will grant it to you. But within 24 hours for today's discussion question, could you briefly introduce yourself to the class? And you can share as much or as little as you like. You're free to upload pictures or video if you like, but you are not required. So again, you will see this question in our discussion forum that for credit for today's attendance, you'll be asked to briefly introduce yourself to the class. So I hope you're well. I'm doing well. And next week we will begin with our public speaking class. Have a good weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.